Okay, thanks, Colin, and hello, everyone. Those of you who are sustainability practitioners like me will probably agree that our lives would be a lot easier if only people did as we asked them to. We spend a lot of time developing, designing initiatives around the sustainability agenda. We announce them with great aplomb with all our board approval and quite often our chief executive sort of effectively cutting the blue ribbon to launch our sustainability ideas, only for them to either fall flat on their face or for them to actually fizzle out after a relatively short period of time. I think for us as sustainability practitioners, it's actually been quite a long time coming for us to realise that people are actually the key within our organisations towards sustainability change, because sustainability is as much around change management as any other issue around changes within any organisation. And whilst we spent a lot of time previously sort of obviously identifying what the economic benefits of sustainability have actually been, in order to justify why we're particularly investing in particular areas, one of the sort of poorer areas has actually been that in terms of people. I think if we are going to call us truly ourselves sustainability practitioners, we should obviously begin to integrate the environmental, the social, as well as the economic side of our thinking. So what I want to do today as part of my presentation is really sort of take you through some of our learning experience as an organisation. I work for an organisation called Natural England. I'll talk a little bit more about us in a moment. But we actually have a very challenging target around sustainability. And really my presentation today is to give you a sense of some of the successes we've had as an organisation, but equally some of the challenges that we've had as an organisation, some of the resolutions that we've found in order to overcome those particular challenges. And I hope from today's presentation you'll be able to take some of our ideas, some of our thinking back into your own organisation. I make no bones about the fact that some of these issues may be familiar to you. They may be reiterating familiar stories that other organisations have already talked to you about today or previously in the environmental press. But I think it's important that we continue to raise these issues as organisations in order that we can effectively challenge them together. What I'm going to take you through today is effectively 5 themes. You could call them buckets. Some people call them buckets. Some people work streams, swim lanes, so on and so forth. But effectively 5 themes around sustainability that have been particularly challenging for us as an organisation. Like Monty Python's Spanish Inquisition, this could easily have been 6 or 10 or 15 or 20. And the only reason why I've got 5 here today is because 5 seems to fit quite well within a 20-minute presentation. And you'll also find that within some of the golden rules that we present, that they are actually sort of subsets to that I actually present to you this afternoon. These are also very much a personal view from my role within the organisation as to what I feel has been particularly successful, but also what has been particularly challenging for me, in effectively managing the change within the organisation. But before I actually go on to do that, I just want to tell you a very little bit about Natural England. Hopefully most of you have heard of us. We were formed back in 2006 under the Natural Environment and Rural Communities Act. We're a government agency, a non-departmental public body. We employ about 2,500 people, and they're distributed across around about 40 or so offices within England. We have a mission statement, or a duty to effectively conserve and enhance the natural environment for its intrinsic value, well-being of people and the economic prosperity that that brings. So already sort of the 3 pillars of sustainability tied up within our organisational values. And you probably know us better for many of the products that we actually deliver as an organisation, things such as environmental stewardship schemes, agri-environment schemes, particularly with land managers and farmers. We're about increasing access to the countryside. You may have heard of various campaigns such as Breathing Places and Walking for Health initiative. We're also responsible for designating national parks and areas of outstanding natural beauty. We notify SSSIs, and we're also responsible for managing the majority of national nature reserves in England. But perhaps a little bit more importantly than that is, from my point of view, is our challenging carbon target. When we first came on the scene, we wanted to really establish ourselves as an environmental leader, effectively to talk the talk and encourage others to reduce their own carbon emissions. We had to walk the walk ourselves. And in order to really set the scene for that, we actually established a very challenging carbon target of reducing it by 50% by the end of this year. And I'll talk a little bit about where we've actually got to in terms of that target at the end. But perhaps a little more challenging even within the target is that we also set ourselves some very key core principles about how we were actually going to deliver that 50% reduction. First of all, that we wouldn't actually do any offsetting. We wouldn't actually effectively pay to offset any of our carbon emissions, and nor would we actually pass on that carbon burden to any of our staff, our customers or our stakeholders. We'd also demonstrate value for money in the delivery of our carbon reduction target, and likewise we would still continue to enhance our levels of customer service throughout the delivery of this particular target. So probably one of the most challenging, particularly in the public sector, sustainability targets of any organisation. So let's move on then to sort of some of the themes and the golden rules associated with those themes. Critical to all our activity within Natural England, no doubt for you people out there working as sustainability practitioners, is data. It's so important that I've actually listed it 3 times here, because I feel that data actually underpins the whole of the evidence base and justifies what you're doing. It's essential for communication across the organisation, and likewise it's absolutely critical for actually prioritising activity and investments, particularly in reducing carbon emissions or other sustainability activities. If you look within the textbooks or even the guidance around managing greenhouse gas emissions, most of them start off with the phrase, well, if you can't measure it, how can you possibly manage it? And I think that stands true regardless of whatever field or profession that you're actually in. And likewise, most of the guidance will go on to talk about how your data should be relevant, consistent, complete, transparent and also accurate as well, and so a large amount of guidance out there about how you actually do that, and I'm not going to go into the process of actually bringing that particular process or the methodology behind that forward. But what I did want to say was within the organisation, within my own organisation, when we first set out on this carbon target, we had a very enthusiastic response from our staff when we announced it, and people were very much sort of advocates of various technologies, particularly around renewables, and a number of schemes were put forward around implementing solar schemes and wind schemes on a number of our buildings across our estate. And the reality is that whilst those, yes, they do save carbon, secondly, they're very costly. And thirdly, that the actual carbon that they save doesn't actually add up to much in terms of the other stuff that we can do. I quite often use the analogy that if I go to a dinner party and I say to people, hey, I'm going to put a wind turbine on the roof of my house, people are automatically interested. They say, that sounds really interesting. How much is it going to cost? How much carbon is it going to save? What sort of money payback period are you actually going to get in terms of that investment? People are interested in that side of things. But yet if I say, at the same dinner party, say, well, actually, I'm going to insulate my loft by an extra 3 inches. Most people tend to move on to a slightly different conversation quite rapidly because people aren't interested in that side of things. It's more mundane, it's more everyday. And yet, as most of us know, it's actually that side of things, the insulation, the energy efficiency side of things, the dealing with your heating controls, that actually saves you the most money, and likewise the same higher amounts of carbon than anything you could probably do on the renewable side. And I think it's important in terms of the message that you're giving out to your organisation that you maintain your evidence base to demonstrate that that is always the case.